This is Roger Stone for American Sovereign Bullion. Since 2020, the U.S. dollar has lost over 20% of its purchasing power. Meanwhile, gold continues to rise. Call 844-272-2428 or go to asbgold.com now to get your free gold and silver guide and learn how to protect your wealth with physical gold and silver delivered to your door or held in a gold IRA today. So go to asbgold.com now. Don't wait for the markets to drop. That's asbgold.com.
I'm fascinated to be able to bring you a story tonight that I have to attribute to, of all people, a former member of the Armed Services Committee, the former Florida congressman, a controversial figure, Matt Gaetz. He's gone public with the most extraordinary allegations, and it's interesting, it's one of the perennial allegations of ufology, the claim that there are...
This is Greg Kelly. Donate now to Toys for Tots, which works year-round. Go to toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots supports children in need throughout the year with programs like the Toys for Tots Literacy Program. Established in 2008, it has provided over 63 million books to disadvantaged children. The Toys for Tots Literacy Program is committed to providing disadvantaged children with direct access to books and educational resources that enhance their ability to read and communicate effectively. Go to toysfortots.org.
Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teen accounts.
We gather here tonight to bring women back to their rightful place.
The Testaments, a new Hulu original series from the executive producers of The Handmaid's Tale.
It's easier to accept a story than believe that the people around you are monsters.
The battle isn't over.
There comes a time when you have to take action, when you have to choose your own destiny.
Never quite as it seems. Watch the new Hulu original series, The Testaments, April 8th on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Alien, human hybrids, the claim that there is some kind of genetic tinkering going on by non-human intelligences with humans. And look, it's something I've never really given a lot of currency to, but I'll tell you honestly, in the last few months, I've had an enormous number of people come to me describing quite disturbing incidents where they describe what sound like abductions. And a lot of the time it's men describing that they're...
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy...
How many discounts will you stack up? Tap the banner or visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
TaxAct filing software and live tax experts can help small businesses easily knock out their taxes. Actually, our experts can help you find deductions and credits for any sized business. Itty-bitty businesses, medium-sized, really big, mid-sized, small businesses, companies with 0 employees, and mom-and-pop conglomerates. Yep, our tax experts can help all of them. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Sperm seems to be being taken. Women are describing invasive procedures that sound like eggs are being taken. And I've never known as a journalist, it's one of those stories you stay away from because it's just, oh my goodness, it's just so scary to even engage with it because it makes you sound like a tinfoil hat nutter. Enter Matt Gaetz. So Matt Gaetz, the former US congressman from Florida, did an interview on a show called The Benny Show. It's a podcast just in the last day or so. And here's a section from that interview. Matt Gaetz said, I had someone come to me and brief me who was in a uniform, a military uniform, who worked for the United States Army. He briefed me on the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some hybrid race that could engage in intergalactic communication. An actual uniformed member of the United States Army briefed me on that. And then later on in the same interview, he said, I had a guy who was uniformed. He was a senior enlisted with the U.S. Army, came into my office at Crestview, Florida, in a non-classified setting. There were members of my staff there. And what they explained is that the military are running a very secret program where aliens are living in forced breeding programs with humans that have been abducted from war zones and from the caravans of migrants. Now, I didn't verify this, says Matt Gaetz, but what the whistleblower was telling me is that there are like between 6 and 12 locations around the country where this happened. And what he wanted was for members of Congress to show up at the same time so that any of these activities could be captured and not be moved away before we saw them. And of course, it's a physical impossibility to get members of Congress simultaneously anywhere at any one time anyway. So it's a very weird allegation, but I will tell you it's something that keeps on bobbing up in my research, this claim that there are breeding programs. And frankly, at the moment, with all of the ongoing revelations that the president is about to make admissions about UAPs, about UFOs, unidentified anomalous phenomena, I'm starting to wonder if the US government's being very coy about what it knows, because what it's been doing is just totally reprehensible. Have they indeed? You know, I think Mr. Gaetz is, shall we say, historically, he's not been a very reliable politician, but there is a real question mark in my mind as to whether there might be something to this claim that there are hybridized aliens. Quite a few people in my research have said to me that there are beings that live amongst us humans, that look human but aren't. And there have been other politicians in recent months, Tim Burchett and others, who've talked about rumoured highly classified US government programs and how they're pushing for the truth of those programs to be revealed. And historically, there have been allegations made by UFO whistleblowers, none of whom have been taken seriously, really, who've come forward with these claims of genetic manipulation. And I guess I go back to the interview I did with News Nation with a guy called David Grush, a very highly respected former very senior soldier who was working for the National Geospatial Agency, and he acknowledged that there are recovered biologics, alien beings, and the suggestion being that there has been research done with these beings. I don't know what to make of it, but I throw it out there because now we have an august former senior member of the Armed Services Committee, former Congressman Matt Gaetz, talking about it quite openly and saying he wasn't able to verify it, but is it possible it's true? Frankly, in this current environment, the way the world's going, I'd believe anything right now. Gaetz has previously come out publicly and talked about a slightly less controversial incident at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, where he tried, in the company of Tim Burchett and a couple of other Congress people, he tried to interview pilots, military pilots, who'd come forward and wanted to talk about their encounters. And he was blocked by the commander of Eglin Air Force Base, the U.S. Air Force Base in Florida. And I've verified that. I've found that that is true. I know that there were pilots that were seeking to speak to Mr. Gaetz and that they were blocked in their efforts to engage with these people. So I like you do, I admire Gates for being fearless. He's often been a bit of an idiot sometimes. I think he's been very indiscreet in his personal life. But the allegations of alien-human hybrids are long-standing in ufology. They've rarely been made by individuals as prominent as Mr. Gates, who's got his former US congressman position. But you can imagine, as a member of the Armed Services Committee, which is meant to be cleared to all of the most highly cleared secrets in the US military, I can imagine as a congressman you do get many people coming to you with allegations that often just can't be verified. And how do you, if you're a member of one of those committees, set out to verify claims like this? There are figures who have occasionally referenced what are called non-human biologics being retrieved from crashes, which we take to mean either living or dead alien bodies. But there are pre-modern ancient stories of gods or beings interbreeding with humans. It's very much part of a book called the Book of Enoch, which is a biblical chapter which was taken out of the current versions of the Bible. And it made allegations of gods interbreeding with humans. And there are bodies that were allegedly recovered from the so-called Roswell crash. And if you go right back in UFO history, George Adamski and others have talked about Nordic aliens, and there have been periodically people who've come forward with stories of not only breeding programs, but in the 70s to the 90s, one of the most incredible stories that was circulating in ufology were these allegations from people of so-called abduction narratives, where women particularly were describing, in some cases, and I've interviewed some of these people, I find them very persuasive, phantom pregnancies. A woman would be diagnosed and assessed as pregnant by a doctor. She'd have all the tests showing she was pregnant. In a couple of the cases I've spoken to, they actually saw their fetuses on ultrasound, and then mysteriously the pregnancy's not there anymore, and there's no miscarriage, there's no indication that they've lost the child. There are a lot of books where people have come forward alleging hybridization programs, and it's interesting because if you go back to the allegations that have made historically, there are allegations of hybrids and aliens, and I know it sounds preposterous, but I'm throwing it out there because I am really struck by the fact I've had meetings as recently as a week or two ago. I spoke to somebody very senior in the FBI who'd had a personal experience where they woke up in the middle of what they believe was some kind of procedure. And they've told me they would never go public with these claims, but they described essentially him and his wife in their bedroom being frozen in a state of paralysis and having their genetic material, sperm or eggs, clearly being taken from them in what was clearly some kind of invasive procedure. It sounds horrendous, but if you consider the possibility that, as President Trump has acknowledged, there are things about UAPs that are very highly classified, maybe, just maybe, this is what it's all about. There's a very interesting analysis that's been done by a highly reputable, I think he calls himself a bioanthropologist, called Professor Michael Masters. And Michael's come up with a theory that the humanoid beings that feature prominently in alien stories, people like Greys, Nordics, and other humanoids, that the chances of that happening by evolution, by random mutation, are extremely unlikely. So he hypothesizes that they are actually our relatives, our ancestors, our descendants, and that basically what's happening, the reason he speculates why they might be coming back in time to extract human material is because there's something that they don't have, that they have lost, that they see in this generation of humans. And he's openly speculated that it's biologically, evolutionarily unlikely that in another part of the universe, humanoid beings with binocular eyes, ears, nose, structures very similar to human beings, Homo sapiens sapiens, would just evolve. And even though they are different from us, the beings that are represented in contemporary ufology, the speculation is that they are in fact related to us, and that the most plausible explanation is that these beings are doing something to recover DNA or genetic material that they are in some way deficient in. And I find some credibility in that theory because Michael Masters is no slouch. He's a highly respected academic and he's published several books on this. And frankly, I think it should be given some currency because we are, I do believe, on the crest of an announcement by the US government where the president, once he's got this dreadful war in the Middle East out of the way, he's promised that he's going to be open about UAPs. He's promised to tell the truth about what the US government knows about alleged non-human life, NHIs. And I know from my own sources that the US government knows a lot more than it has ever publicly admitted before now. I have spoken to people in the US military, and I've also spoken to researchers who've spoken to witnesses who claim to have seen this. There are claims of unfriendly, malevolent beings that have literally taken pieces of humans. And I've spoken to military people who claim that they've been on retrieval teams where they've found human organs and limbs, non-human craft. And I wonder sometimes whether this is the reason why we're not being told the truth, because I know there probably are a lot of people out there who are sitting there in their armchairs and their beds thinking this all sounds like crazy nonsense. But if you heard what I heard on a daily basis from witnesses, people alleging that they've been abducted, experiences, there's such a commonality to their experiences. And if you combine those experiences with what I've heard from people who are in the military, people who've shown me their DD214 records, their records of service, who've confirmed to me with identity cards and other data that they've served at very secure, sensitive installations, I do believe there are things going on that are indicative that there is something engaging with this planet that is not always friendly. And in fact, one of the greatest incidents that's been so well recorded by the Brazilian military is a series of incidents that took place around a place called Coulthart in Brazil. And the Brazilian military tracked the most extraordinary incidents where humans were being killed, their organs were being taken, and it looked like they were craft that were in some way seen hovering over communities, in some cases trying to abduct young girls, young women particularly, and it was vile if it's true, but there were bodies found, and there are these horrific pictures that I've seen from the Brazilian army reports showing holes cut into human chests from which appears organs have been extracted.
Listen to this podcast now on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Leadership Thread with Dr. Peggy Polonis.
I'm Dr. Peggy Polonis. Join me on each episode where I unravel the story that shaped leaders, tracing the thread that led them where they are today. Because leadership isn't born in adulthood. And thank you once again for joining us on the Leadership Thread, education, ethics, and sustainability.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.